Implementation of zoning reforms by Q1 2025, for key stages with $1.2 billion infrastructure investment. Overview. The implementation of zoning reforms by the first quarter of 2025 marks a pivotal initiative designed to modernize urban development and enhance infrastructure investments backed by a substantial budget of $1.2 billion. This comprehensive plan is structured into 4 key stages, each focusing on specific objectives to revise land use regulations and improve community infrastructure. Through stakeholder engagement and strategic planning, this initiative aims to foster sustainable urban growth while addressing the needs of local communities. Key stages of implementation. 1. Assessment and planning Q1 2024, Q2 2024. The initial stage emphasizes a thorough evaluation of existing zoning laws and community needs. This involves stakeholder engagement. Urban planners, local governments, and community members will collaborate to identify areas that require reform. Public forums and discussions will ensure diverse perspectives are considered, fostering an inclusive approach to planning. Data collection, gathering data on current infrastructure demographics and land use patterns will guide the planning process. This data-driven approach will help pinpoint specific challenges and opportunities within the community. Needs assessment, identifying key community needs such as housing, transportation, and public amenities will shape the foundation for proposed reforms. This assessment aims to align zoning regulations with the evolving demands of the population. 2. Drafting and proposing reforms Q3 2024. Following the assessment phase, the next stage focuses on drafting specific zoning reforms, which includes drafting proposals. Based on the findings from the assessment phase, urban planners will create a set of proposed zoning regulations designed to enhance flexibility and promote sustainable development. Public consultations. To ensure community buy-in, public consultations will be conducted. These forums will allow residents to provide feedback on the proposed changes, ensuring that the reforms reflect the aspirations of the community. Incorporating feedback, adjustments to the proposals will be made in response to public input, reinforcing the commitment to transparency and collaborative governance. 3. Approval process Q4 2024. The third stage involves a formal approval process for the proposed zoning reforms. Regulatory review. The drafts will be submitted to local government bodies and regulatory agencies for review. This process may include several public hearings aimed at gathering additional feedback from the community. Revisions and finalization. Based on stakeholder input from public hearings, the proposed regulations may undergo revisions before final approval. This iterative process ensures that the regulations are comprehensive and responsive to community needs. Official adoption. Once finalized, the new zoning regulations will be officially adopted, paving the way for their implementation in the following quarter. 4. Implementation and monitoring Q1 2025. The final stage marks the rollout of the new zoning regulations, supported by the $1.2 billion infrastructure investment. Infrastructure projects. The allocated funds will be directed towards critical infrastructure projects, including improvements in transportation, utilities, and public amenities. This investment is aimed at facilitating urban growth and enhancing overall quality of life. Monitoring and assessment. Continuous monitoring will be established to assess the effectiveness of the new zoning regulations. Feedback mechanisms will be implemented to ensure ongoing community engagement and to address any emerging issues promptly. Adaptation and improvement. The monitoring process will also allow for adaptations to the zoning regulations as necessary, ensuring that they remain relevant and effective in meeting community needs. Common key points across sources. Financial commitment. All sources underscore the significance of the $1.2 billion investment in infrastructure as a critical component of the zoning reforms. This financial backing is essential for executing the proposed changes effectively. Community engagement. The emphasis on community involvement throughout the process is consistently highlighted. Engaging local residents is viewed as vital to ensuring that the reforms align with public needs and aspirations. Phased approach. The structured phased approach to implementation is noted across all sources. This clear timeline provides a roadmap for stakeholders to follow, ensuring systematic progress toward achieving the reform goals. Differences between sources. Economic versus environmental focus. Some sources concentrate on the economic implications of the zoning reforms, discussing potential benefits such as increased housing availability and job creation. Conversely, others emphasize environmental impacts and the importance of sustainability in urban development. Regional variations. Variations in the proposed timeline highlight how different regions may experience the rollout and approval phases at different paces, reflecting local contexts and specific community dynamics. Complete timeline of events. Q1 2024. Initiate the assessment and planning phase to evaluate existing zoning laws and community needs. Q2 2024. Continue assessments, collect data, and foster community discussions to gather diverse input. Q3 2024. Draft proposed zoning reforms and conduct public consultations to incorporate community feedback into the proposals. Q4 2024. Enter the approval process with public hearings and finalize revisions before the official adoption of the new regulations. Q1 2025. Implement the new zoning regulations and commence the allocation of the $1.2 billion investment in infrastructure projects. Conclusion. The zoning reforms set for implementation by Q1 2025 are designed to be comprehensive and community-focused, with significant financial backing aimed at fostering sustainable urban development. The four key stages of assessment, drafting, approval, and implementation ensure a structured approach to the reform process, allowing for careful planning, robust community involvement, and strategic execution. Ultimately, this initiative aims to enhance both the economic and social fabric of the affected areas, paving the way for a more sustainable and inclusive urban environment. The commitment to monitoring and adapting the regulations further demonstrates the dedication to meeting community needs and fostering long-term growth. The content presents a structured overview of zoning reforms set for implementation by Q1 2025, detailing a process supported by a significant $1.2 billion infrastructure investment. Here are some counterintuitive insights related to the implementation of these zoning reforms. 1. Community engagement versus regulatory compliance. While it is commonly assumed that community engagement will always lead to smoother implementation of zoning reforms, the reality can sometimes be quite different. Engaging the community might surface conflicting opinions or unexpected resistance to certain proposals, which could delay the process rather than facilitate it. Stakeholders may find that while the intent is to modernize zoning laws, the diverse needs of the community can create complexities that complicate consensus building. 2. Financial investment and economic development. The assumption that a $1.2 billion investment will automatically lead to economic growth and improved infrastructure is not always guaranteed. The effectiveness of this investment depends on how well the funds are allocated and whether the projects align with actual community needs. There can be instances where large financial inputs result in misallocated resources, leading to projects that do not yield the expected benefits. This disconnect highlights that financial commitment alone does not ensure successful outcomes. 3. Phased implementation and local context. The structured phased approach to implementation suggests a streamlined process. However, local contexts can dramatically alter the pace of implementation. What works in one municipality may not work in another due to differing political climates, community readiness, or existing infrastructure conditions. Thus, while a timeline is established, the actual rollout may vary significantly by location, which can be contrary to the expectation that uniform timelines will be applicable across different regions. 4. Sustainability versus immediate needs. The focus on creating a more flexible zoning framework that encourages sustainable development may lead to tensions between long-term sustainability goals and immediate community needs. For example, while the reforms aim to promote environmentally friendly development, local communities may prioritize immediate housing or commercial space needs over long-term sustainability. This can lead to conflicts between different stakeholders, challenging the assumption that sustainability will be universally embraced as a priority. 5. Infrastructure investment allocation. The presumption that infrastructure investments will directly correlate with improved community outcomes can be misleading. There may be instances where the chosen projects do not align with the most pressing needs identified during the assessment phase, leading to infrastructure that does not effectively support or enhance community living standards. The expectation that all funded projects will provide tangible benefits overlooks the potential for misalignment between investment and community priorities. 6. Public hearings as a formality. There is often a belief that public hearings are a genuine opportunity for community input, however, they can also serve as a mere formality in the approval process. Stakeholders may find that despite public consultations and hearings, the final decisions are heavily influenced by political agendas or bureaucratic constraints, leading to community disillusionment. This highlights the possibility that community voices may not be as impactful in shaping the final zoning regulations as originally anticipated. 7. Long-term monitoring and adaptability. The inclusion of continuous monitoring and assessment suggests a commitment to adapt reforms as needed. However, in practice, the bureaucratic nature of government processes can hinder timely adjustments. Stakeholders may assume that there will be a swift response to emerging challenges post-implementation, but systemic inertia can often lead to delays in addressing issues, undermining the intent of adaptive management. In conclusion, while the initiative to implement zoning reforms by Q1 2025 appears well structured and financially backed, various counterintuitive factors could influence the ultimate success of the reforms. These insights underscore the complexity of urban planning processes and the necessity for a nuanced understanding of community dynamics, economic realities, and the interplay between regulatory frameworks and local needs. The report on the implementation of zoning reforms by Q1 2025 highlights several important aspects that may be overlooked by many readers. While the major points of the initiative, such as the significant financial investment of $1.2 billion and the structured four-phase approach, are likely to catch attention, there are subtler yet crucial elements that deserve greater scrutiny. Here's a detailed exploration of these overlooked aspects and their significance. Community engagement, beyond tokenism. One of the key components of the zoning reform process is the emphasis on community engagement, particularly during the drafting and proposing reforms phase. Many reports may superficially acknowledge the importance of public consultations but fail to delve into how these consultations are structured and their potential impact on the reforms. Significance: community engagement is essential for ensuring that the reforms are not merely top-down directives but are reflective of the actual needs and desires of residents. Effective engagement can lead to more sustainable and accepted urban development strategies. If local voices are genuinely incorporated, the likelihood of community buy-in increases, which is crucial for the long-term success of any urban planning initiative. Conversely, failure to adequately engage the community can result in resistance, legal challenges, or ineffective policies that do not meet local needs. Economic and social interplay. The report mentions the economic implications of zoning reforms, including potential benefits like increased housing availability and job creation. However, it is vital to recognize the intricate interplay between economic development and social equity, which can often be overlooked. Significance: the zoning reforms should not only aim for economic growth but must also address social equity. For instance, if zoning changes lead to increased housing prices without corresponding measures to support low-income families, the outcome can exacerbate existing inequalities. By considering how zoning reforms can promote equitable access to housing and resources, the initiative can foster a more inclusive urban environment. This perspective is essential for creating communities where all residents can thrive. Environmental considerations. While the report touches on sustainability, it may not fully address the critical environmental implications of zoning changes. The potential for zoning reforms to influence land use significantly affects environmental outcomes such as green space availability, urban heat island effects, and biodiversity. Significance: zoning reforms offer an opportunity to integrate environmental sustainability into urban planning actively. For instance, promoting mixed-use developments can reduce reliance on vehicles, thereby lowering carbon emissions. Additionally, incorporating green infrastructure in new developments can enhance resilience to climate change. Readers should consider the long-term environmental benefits of these reforms, which may not only improve quality of life but also contribute to broader climate goals. Measurement and monitoring of outcomes. The last phase of the implementation process emphasizes continuous monitoring and assessment to ensure that the reforms achieve their intended objectives. However, specifics on how this monitoring will be conducted and what metrics will be used are commonly glossed over. Significance: effective measurement and monitoring are crucial for determining the success of zoning reforms. Clear benchmarks and metrics can help stakeholders understand the impact of reforms on community development, infrastructure efficiency, and environmental sustainability. Without a robust framework for evaluation, there's a risk of perpetuating ineffective policies or failing to adapt to emerging challenges. This aspect is vital for ensuring accountability and for making data-driven adjustments to the zoning regulations over time. The role of technology in implementation. The report does not explicitly mention the potential role of technology in the implementation of zoning reforms and infrastructure investments. This could include the use of geographic information systems (GIS) for mapping and analyzing land use patterns, or digital platforms for community engagement. Significance: leveraging technology can enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of the zoning reform process. For instance, GIS can help urban planners visualize data and trends, making it easier to identify areas that require intervention. Additionally, digital platforms can facilitate ongoing community engagement, allowing for real-time feedback and fostering a more participatory planning process. Recognizing the role of technology can lead to more informed decision-making and a more transparent reform process. Adaptive reuse and historical preservation. Zoning reforms often provide an opportunity to address issues related to adaptive reuse of existing buildings and the preservation of historical sites. However, the report may not sufficiently emphasize the importance of integrating these considerations into the reform process. Significance: balancing modernization with the preservation of historical and cultural assets is crucial for maintaining a community's identity. Encouraging adaptive reuse can minimize environmental impacts by reducing the need for new construction while revitalizing old structures to serve new purposes. This can also foster a sense of continuity and connection within the community, which is invaluable for social cohesion. Overlooking this aspect can lead to the loss of unique community characteristics and historical significance. Local context and variability. The report hints at variability in the proposed timeline and implementation processes based on regional differences, but does not elaborate on how these contextual factors will influence the outcomes of the zoning reforms. Significance: local context plays a crucial role in the success of zoning reforms. Factors such as existing land use patterns, community demographics, and local governance structures can significantly influence how reforms are received and implemented. A one-size-fits-all approach may not be effective. Contextualizing the reforms to fit the unique circumstances of each community can lead to more successful outcomes. This nuanced understanding can help stakeholders anticipate challenges and tailor their approach to better meet local needs. Conclusion. In conclusion, while the implementation of zoning reforms by Q1 2025 is a substantial initiative with a hefty financial backing, there are layers of complexity and nuance that warrant deeper examination. By focusing on community engagement, the interplay between economic and social dynamics, environmental sustainability, effective monitoring, the role of technology, historical preservation, and local context, stakeholders can ensure that the reforms lead to holistic and sustainable urban development. Recognizing and addressing these often overlooked elements can ultimately enhance the effectiveness of the zoning reforms and contribute to building more inclusive, resilient, and thriving communities. The implementation of zoning reforms by Q1 2025, bolstered by a substantial $1.2 billion infrastructure investment, marks a pivotal initiative in urban development. To facilitate in-depth analysis and discussion, the following 4 key points emerge as particularly valuable. 1. Financial commitment and infrastructure investment. The $1.2 billion allocated for infrastructure improvements represents a critical financial backbone for the zoning reforms. This investment aims not only to modernize existing infrastructure but also to support the development of new projects that align with revised zoning regulations. The funding will be directed towards enhancing transportation systems, utilities, and public amenities, which are essential for fostering sustainable urban growth. In-depth analysis of this point could involve examining the specific projects earmarked for funding, evaluating potential economic impacts such as job creation and increased housing availability, and assessing how these investments will address current infrastructure deficiencies. Additionally, exploring funding sources and the long-term financial sustainability of these reforms could provide insights into their viability. 2. Community engagement and stakeholder involvement. A significant aspect of the zoning reform process is the emphasis on community engagement and stakeholder participation. The approach ensures that local perspectives and needs are integrated into the planning and decision-making stages. During the assessment and planning phase, stakeholders, including urban planners, local governments, and residents, will collaborate to identify reform areas, making the process inclusive and democratic. An analysis of this point could focus on the methodologies used for community engagement, such as public consultations and surveys. Evaluating the effectiveness of these methods in capturing diverse community voices and addressing potential conflicts of interest can lead to a deeper understanding of the social dynamics at play. Furthermore, exploring case studies of successful community involvement in similar initiatives could provide best practices for enhancing participation and achieving consensus. 3. Phased implementation process. The structured, phased approach to implementing the zoning reforms is another crucial element. The timeline delineates specific stages: assessment and planning, drafting, reforms, the approval process, and final implementation, each with defined objectives and outcomes. This systematic methodology allows for thorough evaluation and adjustment at each stage, minimizing risks and ensuring that the reforms are aligned with community needs and regulatory standards. In-depth discussion could involve analyzing the implications of this phased approach on project timelines, potential delays, and the adaptability of reforms to changing circumstances. Additionally, assessing how well this structured process allows for stakeholder feedback and integration of new information could shed light on its effectiveness in achieving desired outcomes. 4. Economic and environmental implications. The zoning reforms are poised to have significant economic and environmental implications. Economically, the reforms are expected to facilitate increased housing availability, stimulate local economies, and create job opportunities through infrastructure investment and development projects. Environmentally, the emphasis on sustainable development within the new zoning framework aims to address challenges such as urban sprawl, resource management, and climate resilience. Exploring the economic implications could involve examining projected outcomes related to housing markets, employment rates, and business growth. Additionally, analyzing the environmental impact of the proposed reforms, such as their potential to enhance green spaces, reduce carbon footprints, and promote sustainable practices, could offer a comprehensive view of their long-term benefits and challenges. Conclusion. In summary, The zoning reforms set for implementation by Q1 2025, supported by a robust financial commitment and a structured approach, present a multifaceted opportunity for urban development. The emphasis on community engagement alongside considerations of economic and environmental impacts underscores the initiative's potential to reshape the urban landscape in a sustainable and inclusive manner. A thorough exploration of these key points will not only illuminate the complexities involved in the reform process but also contribute to a broader understanding of modern urban planning strategies. Here are three famous historical cases similar to the implementation of zoning reforms focusing on urban development and infrastructure investment. 1. New York City Zoning Resolution of 1916. The New York City Zoning Resolution, enacted in 1916, marked the first comprehensive zoning code in the United States. The legislation aimed to regulate land use in a rapidly growing city, addressing concerns over overcrowding and the impacts of unregulated urban development. The zoning resolution divided the city into residential, commercial, and manufacturing districts, establishing height and bulk regulations for buildings. This reform was crucial in shaping the city's skyline and urban landscape, encouraging orderly development while protecting residential neighborhoods. The resolution was revised multiple times in subsequent decades, illustrating the ongoing need for adaptive zoning practices in response to urban growth and community needs. 2. Los Angeles General Plan and Zoning Reform in the 1970s. In the 1970s, Los Angeles undertook significant zoning reforms as part of its general plan. Faced with issues such as urban sprawl, traffic congestion, and environmental degradation, city planners aimed to create a more sustainable urban environment. The reform process involved extensive community outreach and participation, allowing residents to voice their concerns and preferences. The updated zoning laws emphasized mixed-use development, affordable housing, and increased public transportation options. These changes aimed to address the city's pressing social and environmental challenges while fostering a more livable urban environment. The Los Angeles experience serves as a case study in how community engagement in planning can lead to effective zoning reform. 3. The London Town Planning Act of 1909. The Town Planning Act of 1909 in the United Kingdom was a significant legislative step toward formalizing land use planning and zoning in urban areas. The act allowed local authorities to create town planning schemes that would regulate land use and development across municipalities. This legislation emerged in response to industrialization, which had led to overcrowded living conditions and inadequate infrastructure in urban centers. The act aimed to promote better urban design and improve public health by controlling building density and land use. Subsequent revisions and expansions of the act established a framework for modern urban planning in the UK, influencing zoning practices in other countries as well. These cases illustrate how zoning reforms have historically aimed to address urban growth challenges, improve infrastructure, and enhance community engagement in the planning process. The implementation of zoning reforms by Q1 2025, supported by a substantial $1.2 billion infrastructure investment, is set to transform urban landscapes and community dynamics significantly. This initiative aims to address pressing housing shortages, enhance public amenities, and promote sustainable development by modernizing land use regulations. Below are future outlook predictions related to the initiative's impact implications and expected outcomes. Predictions for the future. 1. Enhanced urban livability. As zoning reforms take effect, cities are likely to witness improved livability standards. The reforms will facilitate the development of mixed-use neighborhoods which integrate residential, commercial, and recreational spaces. Enhanced walkability, access to public transportation, and green spaces will not only make urban areas more attractive but also improve residents' quality of life. Increased housing availability, particularly affordable units, will alleviate pressure on housing markets, leading to greater community satisfaction. 2. Economic growth and job creation. The $1.2 billion investment in infrastructure is expected to stimulate local economies. As new developments arise from reformed zoning regulations, jobs will be created in construction, retail, and services. Moreover, increased housing density can lead to more vibrant local economies as businesses benefit from a larger customer base. Long-term, the improved infrastructure will attract new businesses, further driving economic growth in urban areas. 3. Sustainability and environmental resilience. A key focus of the zoning reforms is fostering sustainable development practices. Future urban planning will likely prioritize green building standards, energy-efficient infrastructure, and environmentally friendly transportation options. As a result, cities may see a shift toward renewable energy sources and enhanced waste management practices. Over time, these initiatives will contribute to urban resilience against climate change, reducing the carbon footprint of urban areas and improving overall environmental health. 4. Increased community engagement and empowerment. The phased approach to the zoning reform emphasizes community involvement, which is likely to lead to more empowered residents. Continuous public consultations and feedback mechanisms will give community members a voice in shaping their neighborhoods. This participatory governance model can foster a sense of ownership and responsibility among residents, potentially leading to increased civic engagement and collaboration on local initiatives. 5. Challenges in implementation. While the zoning reforms hold substantial promise, challenges are inevitable. Resistance from stakeholders who may be adversely affected by changes, such as existing property owners or businesses, could slow down the implementation process. Furthermore, the complexity of coordinating multiple parties, government agencies, developers, and community groups may present hurdles. Effective management and communication strategies will be essential to navigate these challenges. 6. Technological integration in urban development. The future of urban planning is likely to integrate advanced technologies that enhance data collection and analysis. Geographic information systems (GIS), smart city technologies, and data analytics can provide valuable insights into urban dynamics. This data-driven approach will enable more informed decision-making, improving the effectiveness of zoning reforms and infrastructure investments. 7. Social equity and inclusion. The zoning reforms aim to address social inequities by promoting affordable housing and equitable access to resources. Future outcomes may include a reduction in socioeconomic disparities as marginalized communities gain better access to housing, jobs, and services. Policymakers will need to monitor the impact of these reforms closely to ensure that benefits are equitably distributed and that gentrification does not displace existing residents. 8. Long-term urban planning and adaptability. The zoning reforms will likely set a precedent for long-term urban planning strategies that prioritize adaptability to changing demographics and economic conditions. Future urban development will need to remain flexible, accommodating shifts in population, technology, and environmental considerations. This adaptability will be crucial in ensuring that urban areas continue to thrive in the face of evolving challenges. Conclusion. The implementation of zoning reforms by Q1 2025, backed by a $1.2 billion investment in infrastructure, represents a significant step toward modernizing urban environments. The future outlook suggests that these reforms will enhance urban livability, stimulate economic growth, promote sustainability, and empower communities. However, challenges must be addressed to realize the full potential of these initiatives. With careful planning, community engagement, and a focus on inclusivity, the urban landscape can be transformed into a more equitable and vibrant space for all residents. The next few years will be crucial in determining the success of this ambitious undertaking, shaping the future of urban development for generations to come.